welcome to Drinks Break with Ridhima Pathak. I've got with me Zainab Abbas. I fondly call her Z. It's because we became great friends during the 2019 Cricket World Cup, and I would still continue calling us great friends is because, in spite of the big distance between India and Pakistan, we sort of stayed in touch. Right, Z?
Absolutely, absolutely. My friend across the border.
But I'm just really, really sad that I couldn't make it for the marriage. But I have to come and see tea very soon.
Yeah, I think now it seems like the wedding seems like it was ages ago. Now, once you have a child, then you kind of forget that there was ever any wedding or any other celebrations. But yeah, life has become incredibly busy, I suppose, in a good way.
So, Z, I was actually watching an interview of yours, और मैंने ये देखा कि of course the way you've handled having a child and throughout that pregnancy you were still working, that was incredible. But more so the fact that you've maintained doing that level of work and that caliber of work in spite of so much personal responsibilities. So you have to give me some tips on that. How are you doing this?
Um, I think it's just about putting your mind to it, and obviously having a great family support system. I think that's the most important thing. As cliched as it is, family is everything, and if you're lucky enough to be having that support, I think it's definitely manageable. But also, I feel like you have to be physically, mentally fit to be able to do that, because once you give birth and you have a child, your priorities in life become very different, and it's very difficult to maintain your physical fitness as well, and your mental fitness, because having a child takes a toll on you mentally as well. So I think for me, it was just the fact that I felt like I don't want to bog myself down by just doing one particular thing in life. I wanted to continue working. I didn't know before I had the child whether I'll be able to do it, whether I would want to do it. But once I had a system in place, which was very soon after the baby was born, thankfully, very grateful for that. I was able to get back to work, and I even like a month after giving birth, I was back on set. I had these two shoots that were lined up, and I did a full day. I was obviously breastfeeding my son, so I was pumping milk, sending it back to him. And then, I eased myself into it the first, I would say, 2 months. But I think I've been pretty much full on. The last 6 months have been incredibly busy, actually. So it's all worked out well in the end. And if you put your mind to something, I think anything is possible. But yes, like I said, I would say that I've been, lucky enough to have people at home to take care of my son while I'm away, or if possible, carry him with me to places where I can take him. So it's just about organizing. It requires a lot of organizing. That's the one thing. You just all the time, like my life now revolves around planning things for them. So yeah.
Yep, I mean it's a Herculean job. She's making it sound like ये तो बस बाएं हाथ का खेल है, but no, it is a Herculean job. In spite of all the processes that are around, which are there to sort of support you and sort of in a way of a support system, I'm sure the ladies worked very, very hard around it. The one thing that I think you get a lot in your Instagram DMs, which you've also mentioned, I think somewhere, is the fact that people ask you how do you become a sports anchor. और इंटरेस्टिंगली चाहे वो पाकिस्तान हो या क्रिकेट, इसका कोई एक जरिया नहीं है. There's no formal education as such that you can become an engineer, you can become a lawyer, you can become a doctor. But there is no formal education in becoming a sports presenter. So here's the thing for our audience today. Let's decode this. How do you become a sports presenter?
So it's a good question, actually, Ridhima, because I get asked that question a lot. In fact,
Yeah.
most people, most young girls, whenever they send me a message, it's about this, or whenever I meet them, they always say, "Hum kaise aa sakte hain? How can we get into it?" And my response to that always is that having a formal degree is one thing. Like you can have a sports journalism degree.
Yeah.
There is something like that, which is always good. It's never a bad thing to have a formal degree. But I think the one thing that you absolutely, absolutely need is passion, as cliched and obvious as it sounds. I when I got into this, I remember that I was crazy about cricket, And and by saying that I was crazy about cricket, I used to read a lot on it. I used to sit and read books on it. I used to write blogs about it. I used to go and watch every single match, where no matter which part of the world I was in. So I was actually a cricket buff and a cricket fanatic. I used to know my numbers. I used to, so I think it just came very naturally to me come the actual time of talking about it in front of the camera. So I feel like it's always it's not always, in fact it's the most important thing of getting into this field, because I feel like for women as it is tough. This is a male dominated field. And making your space, you're always up for some kind of judgment, or people hold some kind of people have preconceived notions about women talking about sports, and they're quick to judge. So I feel you need to be ahead of the game, and you need to really actually be interested in it before you get into it. So number one is of course passion. Number two, I would say, if you already know at a very early stage that this is what you want to do, then by all means get into sports journalism, do a degree in that. Because you see, I always loved cricket, but I discovered my avenue pretty late, because simply because when I started, there weren't many avenues for women. It was as simple as that. Things have changed in the last 5 years. I started 9 years ago, and there wasn't a thing such as a proper global, like a female voice of Pakistan who would be going around and doing all this. And now I see there are other presenters coming up, there are other commentators coming up, and it makes me very proud, because I feel like I've contributed somewhere in that department. Because at the end of the day, when I turn old and I see a young girl, presenting for Pakistan cricket, I'll feel very proud about it, because I'll be like, I did this years ago, and it's started something which is it's brought some kind of a change within our society. So passion and sports journalism degree, if you can, if this is something that you figured it out. And I think uske baad you need to create your own sort of profile. So
Right.
for example, if you want to be somebody who's a journalist and writes for press, you need to start blogging, you need to start making your own profile. Social media is such a handy tool these days. It wasn't the case when I started. I didn't have that platform. If I did, I would probably utilize it. I just got a lucky break. I gave a few auditions, and I eventually got my way through. But I feel now it's easier for women and men, because you can pick up the camera and make a video and start talking about a particular sport and have your own YouTube channel. You can start affiliating yourself with specific digital blogs or digital websites. I feel like the opportunities are endless. It's just about creating a profile and platform for yourself. So you need to start getting noticed. If you want to get into the television side of things, you have to get noticed. Even if you are aiming for written press, then you need to be able to write extremely well. Aim for the top newspapers or blogs. Start with blogging initially. Start with trying to uh, writing pieces for different various newspapers, and that's how you get noticed. So it's really about doing your own thing, and then hoping that something works out for your own self. So like I said, try and get noticed. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, yeah, I can't agree with you more. Also, for everybody who's watching, it's not just being a journalist. There are so many avenues in sport that, as a woman, you can fill in that position. There is a director, there's a producer, there are floor managers. There are various roles. Z, would you want to highlight some other roles other than television with all the women that we worked? I remember when I did the T20 Women's Cricket World Cup, there was a camera woman
Mm.
covering the Women's World Cup. And I was so stunned and proud to see that when it was happening in Australia. There's so many other roles there. We must highlight those roles also, because we work with a lot of women in cricket itself.
Like I women umpires, obviously
Women affairs,
people
yeah.
that have played the game, but that's one thing that I picked up on. We work with a lot of floor managers who sort of coordinate just for people. They probably don't understand what a floor manager is, but somebody who manages the floor essentially, and gets players in line. If you have to do interviews, make sure that all the sponsorship activities are done and getting things in order. And they have a lot of running around to do, and they work incredibly hard. Like I
Yeah,
feel like they make our jobs so much more easier, and they must get credit for that. Then you also have like DAs, director assistants who are working in the production crew. They're helping out in the background. Honestly, now it's kind of endless. You have people who are working on events, operations, and so I feel like now cricket has become such an event. It's such a global event that
yeah,
you always end up getting opportunity somewhere or the other. So if it's not in front of the camera, I feel like you can always work in the background and behind the scenes. It really depends on what you want to do. I don't think I knew exactly that I wanted to be a presenter in the sense where I would be doing this. I just knew that I wanted to work in cricket. That's the one thing that I wanted to do.
yeah.
So it just so happens, if you want to go down that route, then you have to, grab any opportunity that comes your way. And even if you don't want to if you feel like you're not a camera person, then you can always work behind the scenes. Any kind of contribution works. Like I said, floor managing, director's assistant, events, operations, the list is endless. So
Yeah.
production coordinator, I most of the broadcasters I work with, I'm meeting production managers, production coordinators who are all women. So
Yeah.
women are real leaders in this field nowadays.
You won't believe it, Z. I mean, so WNBA, the women's NBA that happens, did an all women's crew game. So everybody working on that game, along with the game being, the women's NBA, it was a match of women in basketball. Every single person working on that game was a woman. Whether it was a producer, whether it was a director, whether it was, the person who's just organizing the events, was it operations, was it the mice team? Everybody was a woman, so they just organized that, and that was actually quite. If you read about sports and if you actually want to get into cricket, and say sometimes I feel in auditions there's a bit of a luck riding also on your shoulders, and say if you don't know where these auditions are happening, you can actually also work from the back towards the front. So get
Yes.
into, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like I know people who've done that.
yeah,
I can give you examples. I mean, when we were doing the 2019 World Cup, remember we met Aarti,
yeah.
who was
Aarti
at
the
that
Bas-
time. Yeah, she
yeah,
was at that time working for the ICC. But remember, that's not where she started from. She was doing
correct,
what we did years
correct,
ago.
correct.
And I feel like, like you look at people like Aarti or women, so there's so many other women, and they're so inspirational because they're now in strong leadership positions. And at that time when they started, they were doing what we're doing. So there's always an option of doing something else. You don't have to, be stuck in. There's not just one option for women in this field, which is presenting. You can do other things as well, and still feel empowered and still feel like you're creating a difference. In fact, I feel like people who work behind the scenes work so much more harder than us, and they are the people who actually, they're always there. Like the crew is always there before anybody else. They set up so early. They work incredibly long hours, rigging, de-rigging. I feel like they deserve a lot of credit. So yeah, there's always that. I gave you an example of Aarti, but there's so many other examples as well. You look at a lot of women who were producing and then they came into presenting, or they were presenting and then they went into producing. So it just depends on the individual, and what you want to achieve, right? Like
Yeah,
I feel like you probably think that as well, that you enjoy your work. I enjoy my work, but maybe at some point I might want to do something else. I don't want to think that this is something that I want to do for the rest of my life. It doesn't work like that. You keep on changing things. You keep on doing things that personally satisfy you. So that is the most important thing.
true that. Okay, so now talking about some major moves also that have happened in order to, empower women who are playing cricket. So talking about the gender pay parity that has happened, introduced by New Zealand Cricket Board and now by BCCI. How do you see this move?
Incredible. It's a game changer. Full credit to New Zealand Cricket Board and BCCI for bringing this on board. I hope the other boards follow as well. I feel like take a leaf out of their books, and this is something that they should implement, because at the end of the day, we talk about equality and on different levels. We talk about equality on in the corporate life. We talk about equality in I don't know, the entertainment business. Then why not sports? If
Yeah.
we talk about equal pays in the entertainment business, that I don't know, actors and actresses should get paid the same. Or if we talk about it in the corporate life, where women who have leadership positions, the CEOs, and they should get uh, paid equally, then it should be the same in sports as well. I mean, at the end of the day, the amount of hard work that you're putting in, and if you're sweating it out, it doesn't matter if you're a woman or a man. At the end of the day, you're putting in the hard yards, and you need to get recognized for that equally. And I also feel like monetary compensation is important because it encourages, at least in our part of the world, in Pakistan at least, I can speak for that, more women to take up the sport. You
Yeah.
see, a lot of the women that come, they come from humble backgrounds. They don't have, all the money in the world to be providing for their families, and so for them, it can become a means or a source of earning and
Yeah.
surviving and thriving.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a great move. And when you talk about the sport becoming more global, if you want to make cricket more global, then gender inclusivity is, I feel, right up there in that regard.
No, absolutely. So, what is the other immediate move that you'd like to see in the women's game?
See, I mean, like, obviously, pay was one aspect which I'm very, very happy about. But I
Yeah.
feel like in Pakistan, I personally really appreciate, or I would rather encourage all the women cricketers that you see, the ones that have really made it, or the ones, like a Julan Goswami or a Mithali Raj or Sana Mir. These are the icons of cricket who've left a mark in the society. I feel like they should be holding talks, or the board should be organizing these women to do tours across the country where they go to colleges. And see, for me, I'm all for like motivational talks. I feel like schools, colleges may, if a Sanamir is rocking up to school and saying, okay, this is what I did, and if this is your passion, I would totally encourage you to do it, and this is my journey. I feel like pep talks and motivational talks should definitely happen within the country, because, like a place like a country like Pakistan or even India, you're challenging, like I said, you're challenging different notions that are already existing within the society. So, families might be like, turning around to their children and their girls, that why do you want to take up cricket? What's there
Yeah.
in cricket? They can be challenging. So I think the girls need to be prepared and have their answers ready
Yeah.
when families do question their choices, and that can happen by listening to the journeys of different women around them, of the ones that have really made it there. So I think, ek to I would definitely say कि, the board needs to get actively involved in organizing such workshops around the country for women, and it should happen on a regular basis, ताकि उसकी relevance ना जाए. The other
Right.
thing that I would say is, broadcasting. So I feel like uh, India probably is much better in that sense, because you have broadcasters who show the women's sport. पाकिस्तान में अब जाके थोड़ा बहुत दिखाना
Mm.
शुरू हुआ है. पहले तो it was like not even streamed up. Then it started getting live streamed online. अब जाके people are taking interest in our local channels. I feel like it should be a collective responsibility of our channels as well, of our broadcasters, to be giving it that kind of exposure, increasing the production level, because when the production level increases, people will naturally watch it. When people naturally watch the game, then
Yeah.
obviously when there's more interest in the game, there's more money in the game.
Yeah.
So it's like all a chain, it's all linked. And at the end of the day, you need money in the game for it to thrive. That's just how it works. You need basic money in the game to be able to improve infrastructure for women, to be able to improve their facilities. So it's all a chain, right? So there's so many things that can be done. These are
Yeah.
obviously just some random ideas that come on top of my head.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I think with women's IPL coming in, I think that would be a game changer for our especially for our domestic cricketers, the 16, 17-year olds who will directly get to interact with that kind of international base. I think that would be quite the game changer. But yes, that something's happened, something's good has happened, but there's a lot that has yet to happen. Actually, I was reading this article. Uh, so the very first cricket World Cup that was ever organized in the world was for women's cricket. It was organized by England in 1973, which was 2 years before the men's cricket. And that's exactly what is written there, is that while the men's game has always celebrated its oldest players and role models, in women's cricket, we've not done enough. And they've compared women's cricket to the role of the scientists, women scientists, because they've not been recognized enough for their contributions in that field. And just that you said that the inclusion of their names in order to celebrate the game is actually a must, not just financially alone, but just to sort of be there in that league and being recognized for the contribution. I think that is a must.